Mr. Frodo's not going anywhere without me.
No, indeed, it is hardly possible to separate you, even when he is summoned to a secret council, and you are not.
Oi! We're coming too! We'll have to send us home tied up in a sack to stop us.
Anyway, you need people of intelligence on this sort of mission. Quest. Thing.
Well, that rules you out, Pip.
9 companions. So be it. You shall be the Fellowship of the Ring.
Welcome back to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, Unparalleled, and with me, as always, is my co-host. We got the mayor of Hobbiton in today, Mr. James O'Reilly.
How's it going, buddy?
It's going. And each week we take a look at my 1,000 movies I've seen in theaters, and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. So if you enjoy this kind of content, hit that sub button on YouTube, leave that 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's how you help the channel grow. And Jim, what are we watching tonight?
Well, I think our first ever roll credits made it pretty clear. But we are watching The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
That's right. The 2001 fantasy adventure film itself, one of the biggest franchises of our era in the mid-2000s. Directed by Peter Jackson from a script by him, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens, and starring Elijah Wood, Viggo Mortensen, Ian McKellen, and so many other people. Now, Jim, I know you're going to be very excited because we once again get to bust out the cover. Not only, it's not a DVD cover this time, Jim. Can you see what that is? That is a VHS copy of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, from
with a $9.99 sticker right on the front.
Sticker on it from Blockbuster, dated November 3rd, 2002. That is a piece of history right there. But we turn to the back cover for our log line here. With the help of a courageous fellowship of friends and allies, Frodo embarks on a perilous mission to destroy the legendary One Ring. Hunting Frodo are the servants of the Dark Lord Sauron, the ring's evil creator. If Sauron reclaims the ring, Middle-earth is doomed. Winner of 4 Academy Awards, this epic tale of good versus evil, friendship and sacrifice will transport you to a world beyond imagination.
Yeah, they played it pretty straight this week, and I think they basically described what the movie is.
Unfortunately, our Sunny Side Up guy must have been out of town.
Yeah.
So we had to go pretty serious on that one.
Yeah, it's not up his alley. This isn't the kind of work he's looking for.
Yeah, no, this is, they needed a true log liner for this one. But as always, we turn our attention to our memories of these movies from yesteryear. Jim, did you see this movie in theaters?
I did. I think I might have mentioned this last time, but this is the first movie that I saw multiple times in theaters. I saw this 3 times when it first came out.
3 times, man. Do you remember how far apart each viewing was? Like, did you go like one after the other? Was it a few weeks?
I would say it was within like a month. It was probably like in 3 to 4 weeks that I saw it 3 times.
Yeah, there you go. That's what's up. Do you remember who you went with every time?
Yeah, so this is another thing I think I talked about a little bit last week where, I'm too young at this point to have my own money and my own transportation to go to the movies 3 times. So I had to convince, me and my sister both loved this movie when we first saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the course of that month, we spent like all of our energy convincing each one of our older brothers to take us to see it again. Because our dad took us the first time, and then our oldest brother took us the second time, and then we finally convinced my other older brother, and he was the last person to take us, and he hated it. So we were
What? I doesn't like the Jurassic Park movies, hated Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, too cool for school, man.
Too cool for school, man. Yeah, he was not with the nerd culture back then.
He turned to me with about 15 minutes left in the Fellowship, and he said, "When is this movie gonna end?"
My God.
I was like, well, it's gonna end in about 10 minutes, but hopefully never.
sit this man down for the extended edition. Let him see what a real movie is.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What about you? Who did you see this with?
So I went with the this is another Big Rob and Zach excursion. I don't think at this point I had read the books yet. I think I saw the movies first before I read the books. But Big Rob took us. I remember, being obsessed with it. I remember seeing this movie, and I have like a core memory of later that night having like a sweat-induced nightmare of the scene where Kate Blanchett becomes like the like scary ghost
Yes.
monster, and she's just like, "I would be the greatest queen that," and I would like, and I had like a visceral nightmare of that like later that night. And that
Yeah.
has stuck with
Dude, that
me. Every time I watch this movie, I remember that fucking nightmare.
that still scares the shit out of me, that part. It still scares me.
Yeah, dude, and it was just fantastic. But what a great movie to see in theaters. What a seminal movie. This is 2001. We're what, 11 at this point?
Yeah,
That's
11.
like 11 going on 12. Like that's a seminal movie right there to see in theaters. That is fucking huge.
Yeah,
And
and I mean
yeah, go on.
we'll get into it later, but it's like the kind of movie that when you see at that age, my jaw was just kind of on the floor those first 3 times that I saw it. I just like was just blown away by all of it, and we'll definitely get into that more later,
Yeah.
but just that's my memory of it as an 11-year-old.
It's one of those movies that as soon as it's like you're sitting in the seat, like there's always that thrill when you're sitting in a theater right as the lights go down and right as the movie's about to start, where you're just waiting for that first scene to let you know, like in your like pit of your stomach, if you're in for something special.
Yeah.
And that was one of those movies that you just knew right from the get-go that you were in for something larger than life. And
Yeah.
speaking larger than life, there was nothing larger than this movie's box office run. So, Jim, let's dive into some juicy numbers.
Numbers, dates, and numbers, dates, array, dates, numbers. Show me the money.
All right. So I'm going to try something a little different this week because this opening weekend is stacked. I am going to call out some really good movies, and I'm going to work my way up to number 1, where we will inevitably find The Lord of the Rings.
Okay. Now, are all these movies that came out this weekend, or this is just what's
Yes.
in theater? They all came out this
Opening
weekend.
Opening
my
weekend
Lord.
for all the movies I'm about to say.
Okay, what weekend is this? Like, what's the opening weekend? December what?
Yeah, December 21st to December 23rd. So you're also talking about Oscar movies here. This is
Okay.
like exactly the kind of movie that comes out that time of year, right?
Okay.
So number 16 that week, opening in only 11 theaters,
not a good
Beautiful
start.
Mind.
Ooh, wow, what a slow rollout for that.
Yeah, I mean it gets a limited release probably at the end of December just to get into the Oscars, and then they run it after that,
Yeah.
So then in 10th place, not quite an Oscar movie, Joe Somebody opens in 10th.
Now there's a movie.
Yeah. This is a movie that came up, I believe it was, I don't remember what episode, but in 8th place that week, opening in, in 8th place that week, The Majestic pulls
Oh,
in 4.9 million.
we have talked about that before. There's a movie.
I think this is my second favorite movie that comes out this week here, but in 5th place with 7.1 million, How High?
Oh, there's a classic.
Opening weekend of
They're
How
like,
High.
that's so fun. They're like, we need some counter programming for Lord of the Rings. Like, what do you got?
Yeah.
How high?
Yep, How High indeed. And actually, I take it back. It's probably my third favorite movie because it's not better than A Beautiful Mind, no matter how much I love it. In 3rd place that week, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius opens.
Interesting.
And then we finally made it to number 1, opening weekend of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, 47.2 million against the $93 million budget.
I mean, interesting start for it right there, but I'm sure this is going to be the case of many December movies that usually open on a lower scale but end up becoming such a huge run. Like let's 47.2, looking over at our chart here, good enough to secure the number 9 spot behind How the Grinch Stole Christmas's 55.1 and ahead of Scary Movie's 42.3.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
this
So we're
is
not
this is something we've run into like a handful of times now where it's opening the 21st to the 23rd, right?
yeah,
But what does that mean? That means that if your Sunday is the 23rd, Christmas Eve is a
it's a
Monday,
Monday.
and Christmas everybody's off is a Tuesday, big movie day. So I know you don't like to put the 5 days on the
No,
list, but if you do a 5 day weekend here, it pulls in 66.1 million.
just
So much
is solid.
more, much higher up on the list. Like that puts it in, I think, like third or fourth place, right?
It puts it up there, but the fiver, I can't take fivers. Fivers should be have those big asterisks on them right there. I mean,
Yeah, that's fair.
it's a good lead in. Like, and it's going to continue to make money week over week. Because I mean, this falls in line with many other movies in December that have gone on to become, some of the biggest of all time. Like Titanic only opened to 28. Castaway only opened to like 28, 29, and like both
Right.
like Titanic becomes the highest grossing movie of all time. Castaway runs through the winter and becomes a huge worldwide grosser, and I'm sure
Totally.
this will do just the same. So
Yeah.
these
So
opening weekend grosses are pretty like right on the money there. Like that's a
yeah.
good opening weekend for a December that's leading into Christmas weekend.
Well, right, and that's the thing that we've talked about all these other times too, is that, maybe I'm not going on the 24th or the 25th, but a lot of people are off throughout that whole week. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And like,
Yeah.
so you're cashing in on the next weekend because people maybe had like a couple of days of work and then like they're in the weekend again and they probably used a couple vacation days, right?
Yeah.
So in weekend 2, it stays number 1, only an 18% drop down to
See,
38.7 million,
like
which that's,
that's
as drops
fucking
go, that's pretty
yeah.
great, right?
As drops go, it's fantastic. Anything less than 20% drop week over week, especially from week 1 to week 2, is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean it's still staying way ahead of Ocean's 11 in second with around 17 million. Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius holiday movie for kids doing still pretty good still, 15 million in third. Ali comes out that weekend.
Ooh.
Right, which is an interesting one.
A weird time to
Beautiful.
put that out too. Like the in between, like it's weird that you would pick in between Christmas and New Year's to put out a movie and not just put it out for Christmas.
Yeah, well, because here's the thing, right? This is where you're really gonna cash in. Um, Let me get to New Year's Day, actually. Let me see that. So the long New Year's weekend, the
Yeah.
28th to the 1st, right? So this is again adding New Year's Eve and New Year's on for another 5 day weekend. It pulls in 57 million. So
So it's
that's like also a really small drop from the 5 day for Christmas. Like it's doing great business and it's cashing in on the
nice.
holiday like
It's
perfectly.
it's showing that it's the movie to go see over the holiday weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. So then weekend 3, it's gonna stay in first place, pulling
We're
in
going on a
20.
run, baby.
Yeah, we're going on a run. We're going on a run. We're up to 3 weeks at number 1.
Here we
It's
go.
gonna pull in 23 million for a 40.5% drop, which for weekend 2 to weekend 3, when you had as small of a drop as you did on the first one, that's really good.
That's still really good.
A Beautiful Mind, by the way, is up to a much wider release. It's in second place now with the 16.5 million.
And so probably like actually it did one of those ones where it has the like city releases just to get in contention for Oscars. And then like the first weekend of January, they're like, put it everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's keep our run going here. We're in weekend 4, Lord of the Rings number 1 again,
Oh yeah,
16.2
baby.
million.
Let's go.
Beautiful Minds also hanging tough, only an 8.1% drop down to 15.2.
It's nice. We haven't had a run in a while.
Yeah, and then weekend 5, the run is over.
Ah, shortly.
Um,
Oh, can I guess what beat it?
yeah, go ahead.
Well, all right. So it's 2000. We're in 2002 now.
Do you want a hint? I'm sorry, you sounded really confident. It sounded like you had a guess already.
Well, hold on. Let me do some mental gymnastics first before I ask for my hint. So we're second week of 2002, right? Is what we're
No.
up to?
hold on, let me see.
You're in 2000.
We are up to third week of 2002.
Third week of 2002. Okay.
But this is tricky, man. I don't think you're gonna get it.
What's the genre?
Let's call it a war movie.
2002. We're calling it a war movie.
That is what I'm gonna say. If you want, I can go look up what other people might call it. But that's what I would call it off the top of my head.
What? It's like that's what I would call it.
Well, I don't know. I can explain more once you know what it is.
My God.
So for now, let's call it a war movie.
We're gonna call it a war movie. Can I ask this one follow-up question?
Yeah.
What war?
This is why I didn't want to call it a war movie, because I don't know. I'm not
No.
even sure we were in a real war when it happened. I don't know, dude.
We weren't in a real war?
I don't. So you're making this so complicated. Hold on, let me look up what war it might have been, because I don't know.
Oh my God. All right, well, all right. So all right, were we alive? Were we alive?
Yes, we were alive in the year this movie takes place. Let me put it that way.
Okay. See, we're narrowing it down. Now I'm gonna get this. We're narrowing it down. I'm gonna get this. All right. So if you're hesitant about if it's a war or not, it has to do with the Middle East then.
Is that a question, or are you just thinking out loud?
I'm just generalizing out loud. Is it before or after 9/11?
It is. The movie is set before that.
2002. Is it Black Hawk Down?
Yeah, it's Black
Dude,
Hawk
Down.
So the reason I thought it was tricky is because in the
We were technically, yeah.
yeah, Black Hawk Down's first 3 weeks had like a really limited release as well.
Okay.
So this is its 4th week in theaters, but it has a 3,000 screen jump from the previous week.
Yeah.
And I think the previous week it only was on 16 screens. It's up to 3,100. And then, its gross it doesn't drop. It goes up 3,722%. So that was a tricky one. Like you weren't gonna like.
That was a tricky one.
I was thinking you were trying to hone in
on
the opening.
I was very close to giving up in the beginning, but I think I asked the pivotal questions. The pivotal questions got me there.
Like, I think I've seen Black Hawk Down once, like 15 years ago, so I would call it a war movie. But like, if you ask me what war, I'm like, I have no idea, dude. Like, I'm not even sure there was even a real war that we were involved in that movie.
I don't think it was like considered a war. Like it might have just been like an occupation or whatever.
Yeah, I think wasn't it like they were just like flying overhead and got shot down or something?
Yeah, but we were still there for something.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was like during wartime. Yeah, irrelevant.
That
we will explain by the end how this all ties into Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Well, no, and then the second hint I was going to possibly give you was that there was an actor that was similar between the two movies.
Oh yeah, Orlando Bloom is in it.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about that more in IMDb deep dive later. But so Black Hawk Down opens to number 1. It takes the top spot from Lord of the Rings. It pulls in 28.6 million. In second place, not Lord of the Rings, so it loses to 2 movies this week.
Wow. So it drops down to third?
Yeah, it drops down to third. In second place, the Cuba Gooding Jr. vehicle, Snow Dogs.
Dude, fuck off.
With 17.8 million. That's movie's opening weekend. And then Lord of the Rings pulls in 12.4 million down in third place. Still only a 23% drop. Still really good.
What a way to get your run cut off at the knees. But four weekends at number 1, Jim, we haven't had a run this good since How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So now Lord of the Rings is tied with How the Grinch Stole Christmas with 4 weeks apiece. So they're sharing the number 2 spot right now, just behind our number 1 winner that no one's touching, Titanic's 15 weeks.
Right. Nobody's getting there anytime soon.
Mm.
And then let's just ride it out of the top 10 here. Week 6, it comes in 8th place with 7.8 million. Week 7, it comes in 8th place again with another 5.7 million. And then week 8, it is finally out of the top 10, down to 11 with 3.6 million.
I would have thought that this would have spent a little bit longer in the top 10 than that, but 7 weekends puts it in with a bunch of movies right here. It's joining the likes of Armageddon, The Perfect Storm, The Mummy Returns, and Doctor Dolittle 2.
Oh,
All share
nice.
7 weeks.
Yeah, and what I will say, just as like a cap, it does still have really nice legs. Like it's out of the top 10, but it hovers around 11 or 12 for a while. And it doesn't
Okay,
like
yeah.
dip below like 2 million for pulling in 2 million every weekend until weekend 15.
So
No,
yeah, so
actually weekend 16, sorry. So it's still like chalking up totals. It still has good legs. And then just so then to get to our like totals. Domestic, it finishes with 316.1 million.
okay.
International, 567.3 million. And then worldwide, that brings it to $884 million.
Yeah, see, so 47 opening weekend and then finishes with what was it? 870
884 million is like the worldwide
884.
total.
Yeah, that's 884. Like that's a huge worldwide total. That's good enough to put it now in the number 4 position, just behind Star Wars Episode 1's 924.3 and ahead of the Lost World Jurassic Park's 618.6. So
Yeah, and it's
that's a
it's
that's a
important to keep in
resounding
mind.
success. What?
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind too that that's again against a $93 million budget, which
Yeah.
if you look at a movie that makes $800 million today, it probably cost them 300 plus million to make it. 200, 300 plus million to make it. So it's like it's a huge success back then.
Huge success. And especially coming right off of the tail end of 2001 here, looking at two of the biggest fantasy adventure series, both making an absolute insane splash. Like we just did Harry Potter,
Yep.
kicking off this huge franchise that pulls in these record numbers. And then now you do Lord of the Rings a month later and basically repeats it. It's insane. We were that's a what an end right there.
Yeah, yeah. For sure, yeah. And then so I guess let's just dive into it then. What did you like or not like about this movie?
Well, this is going to be one big masturbatory set for me here, Jim, because I'm going to let you know a little secret. There is nothing that I dislike about any of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, fair.
And anything that I possibly could is just going to be me just trying to be objective and like critique something because obviously you want to be like, well, nothing's perfect, but fuck that. This movie's perfect. I love everything about this movie. You talked a lot about, in Harry Potter, the just how beautiful and amazing the building blocks of setting up a first movie can be when it's done
Yep.
right. And this movie does it just as well, if not better than Harry Potter. Everything, the opening of this movie, so many movies can fail and have failed at doing that huge expository opening and it not work. But for this movie, it works so goddamn well.
Yeah, well, I agree. Yeah, the opening drags you right in. The music is great. Is this only in the extended version where they have that like really like forlorn violin playing over Galadriel telling you about what happened at the battle?
No, I think that's in the regular cut too. I think with the extended one, I think that might just be longer, but
Yeah,
I'm pretty
right,
sure
right.
that that violin thing still hits right there. Dude, a soundtrack musician Howard
Yes.
Shore, fucking
Soundtrack is incredible.
Howard
Uh,
Shore rips the shit out of this movie.
Yeah, but so for that opening though, you're right. You said earlier that it's this huge epic battle for an opening and that you can easily fail at that. Gladiator's a movie we talked about that did it pretty well, but also like there's some of the most jarring like silly scenes in that movie, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Whereas this one it's visually so stunning, like everything that happens in it. And this is like visual effects wise probably the first time anybody had seen anything like what this movie was doing, right? Like
Absolutely. And it all pays off because they won the 13 Oscar noms, 4 wins, visual effects being one of those wins. And you see it everywhere in this movie. The visual effects are just it's crazy that, I feel like we're going to end up referencing it a lot in this, but it's impossible not to with Harry Potter being released a month earlier, where that is also a huge, like, larger than life world of visual effects. And then legit a month later, we see another movie that takes visual effects to a completely different level a month after it was already just brought to another level. Like
Yeah.
we're in this era now where it's moving at and it's just expanding at an exponential rate at this point.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, yeah. And it's just like you're also getting like this new wave of filmmakers, like the guys who are able to establish themselves doing this visual stuff the best are the guys that we're going to talk about for, the next decade, 2 decades, whatever it is, right? Um so like yeah, like Peter Jackson is on the cutting edge of this stuff and it all looks amazing. Like it still holds up on
It
a
looks
$93 million budget, which just like
looks
they should have given that guy the key to Hollywood at that point. Like he just like he did such a bang up phenomenal job making this movie.
well because they do what was so beautiful about the early days of visual effects is that they took the time to blend it. It wasn't just how you see it today where they're like, just throw a green screen behind it, we'll do it all in post. They took the care to be like, what tricks can we use so that we're not always dependent on this type of green screen CGI? So you see scenes where like you're the crow and you're flying into the pit around Saruman's tower and you're seeing all the trees getting cut down into to create the orcs.
Yep.
And it's all done using miniatures.
Yep.
And it looks phenomenal.
Yeah. So yeah, so the visual effects amazing, especially in that opening sequence. The narration in that opening sequence is amazing. It's so like it just like it drags me in so fast and so hard.
And it gives you
Um
just the right amount that you need without being too much. Because I always used to think that scene where Hugo Weaving is talking about how he went with Isildur to Mordor, and he's like, "Do it, cast it into the fire," and he's like,
yes. Yeah.
"No." I always thought that was in the opening, but it's not.
No, it doesn't happen until like way later, right?
Yeah, it doesn't happen till way later when we get to Rivendell.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how well he balanced that act of being like, let's get in, let's get exactly what they need to know so that we can kickstart this story, and then have that beautiful title card as we like appear in Hobbiton, and we got Frodo hanging by the tree, and Gandalf rolls into town. Like
Yeah.
it's just picture perfect filmmaking.
Yeah, and I mean this like one of the biggest things that I like about this movie, and I'm a fan of like high fantasy in a big way. And this may seem like sacrilege to some people who are also fans of high fantasy. I've never read any of the Lord of the Rings books. I tried when I was younger to read like the first like 50 pages of this one, like Fellowship, and I gave up when like Bilbo was like giving like a whole family history that was like 3 pages long.
I'm with you. I've read I slogged to get through those books just because I wanted to be like, yeah, I read them, but they're tough, man. They're dense.
Yeah, I'll probably get to him one day, but in general, I'm a fan of high fantasy. And this movie is probably the only movie I can think of that makes me feel the same way that those high fantasy books make me feel. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like this is like it's kind of a trope in these books to start off with like a prologue or like an opening chapter that's big and epic like that, and then come back down to earth and come to like the smallest place you can think of with the most homesy guy you can think of, you know? Like that's something you see in a lot of these things. And this movie does it perfectly. Like I am so in on Hobbiton. I like want to live there. It just like the whole thing warms my heart when he's riding by and the kids are all like Gandalf, Gandalf, and then like he goes really far and then the fireworks go off and they're all like freaking out and the guy's smiling, and then his wife like side eyes him. Like all of that just feels. It makes me feel so at home in a way that like isn't logical, but I don't know how they make me feel that way, but they do it. You know?
Uh, well, it's just it's every piece of filmmaking just coming together, the work that just gives you that, because it's like the sweeping music behind it, like the Hobbiton music, where it's like do do do
Yeah,
do do do
yeah.
do.
And again, the soundtrack is killing
Yeah,
it. Yeah, the
like
soundtrack is incredible.
yeah, it shows how well a good soundtrack adds to a movie. Because it does make you feel that like homesy feeling of Hobbiton the entire time you're there. And just the way in which every single character from Hobbiton is introduced is throughout Bilbo's birthday is so great. Like just the way you interact, all like Merry and Pippin just dicking about,
Yeah, setting off the
like
fireworks.
yeah,
Yeah.
setting off the fireworks.
Which
Uh,
that's a scene I like. That's one of the scenes from this movie that are burned into my brain. And there's many, but the scene where Gandalf catches them like lighting off that big dragon firework, it's just
uh,
it's they went so hard on that scene, and it's really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of this movie, but it's so good.
it's one of those things that easily could have landed on the cutting room floor and like really have lost nothing, but it still just adds so much flavor to the movie.
Yeah. And then I want to talk a little bit about just like Frodo as a main character. Because again, there's another aspect of fantasy books in this where you're getting like the Holmesy guy who's smaller than all the big stuff, kind of going out into the world for the first time.
Mm.
And I like the way they handle that whole sequence where it's like they have to go out on their own at first, and Merry and Pippin are kind of idiots, and like he's the only one who really like is like taking it as seriously as need be. Um, but like him kind of just us seeing the new world through his eyes, like getting introduced to it as he's getting introduced to it. And then I think my favorite part of this whole movie is we've talked a lot about like when your main character has to make a decision, right? And they do this amazing thing where he carries the burden of the ring, and as he's going, he's starting to learn more about what that means and the dangers it entails for him, and he finally gets to Rivendell on death's door, right? And he wakes up, and they go to that secret council, and everybody's fighting about who should take it or who shouldn't take it, and like he realizes that he has to be the one to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and nobody's asking him to at this point. Elrond kind of wants him to. Like, Elrond kind of wants him to. And I think Gandalf kind of realizes that he needs to because everybody else there is like way too powerful. If the ring were able to manipulate them, they would be able to tilt the scales in a way that could ruin it for everything, right? So like it has to be Frodo. He's forced into it, but he still makes the decision because he could absolutely walk away. He's not on the hook for it at all. And he knows that he needs to save the world. So he chooses to take the burden. And he's going to carry that for 3 movies. You know what I mean? It's like, it's amazing.
It's fantastic that just ownership choice that they have him take, and they have him do it twice, because even later on when he realizes how badly this is going to corrupt the rest of his team around it, like when he sees in Sean Bean, and then he even asks Aragon, like, would you like, what would you do? Like, what, like he knows he has to go at it alone because he can't risk the rest of them like feeding off of this thing around him.
Right.
And that's a thing that makes Samwise such a beautiful character in this too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the one person that can't be corrupted by, because even like Frodo, he pushes himself and gets himself to the end piece, but it takes a piece of him out of it. But Samwise is the only one I feel like that you ever see that spends a lot of time around the ring that never for 1 second feels like he's going to take it from Frodo.
Right. He refuses to waver. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, that's why he's such the perfect like sidekick for him. Like I have to go alone, Sam. He's like, you're going alone and I'm coming with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, of course. Yeah. And no. So a couple of things there, right? One, it stays with him forever in this movie. He gets that stab wound, and Gandalf says like he'll carry that for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? Like it's already changed him forever, and just in this movie. But the other thing, we talked about this a bunch with Star Wars, and then again with Harry Potter, like being the building blocks. But Star Wars also, Phantom Menace also had a lot of setup in it. And what did we say in that episode? That it lacked the ability to stand on its own as a movie. It was too much setup, and they were trying so hard to set things up that they were kind of losing like what was good about their individual movie that I was watching. Absolutely opposite in this movie, right? This movie is about like what you were just saying, where Frodo goes from a guy who's got not a care in the world, and you know is just living it up in the Shire, smoking Hobbits herb or whatever
The
whatever
taro leaf,
Saruman calls it. Yeah, Hobbits leaf.
Sarah's like, you've been enjoying the taro leaf too much for those hobbits. Like, it's like what Gandalf just shows up, gets high with them all the time. Like, what a baller move.
Yeah, and so he's doing that, right? He goes from that in this movie to making the choice to bear that burden, and you know, making it with help. He's like, I don't know how to get to Mordor, and I still got all these powerful guys hanging out around me. They're pretty cool. He has to learn over the course of the movie, like you were saying, that he's alone. He has to have that slowly taken away from him. And by the end of the movie, the thing he's learned is that he cannot trust a single soul, except Samwise, maybe.
Basically, it's a journey of one man learning the brunt of responsibility that's been thrust upon him and really accepting the responsibility that's been thrust into his hand. Like, I love that scene when he's sitting with Gandalf, and I think they're in the mines of Moria, and he's like, I wish the ring had never come to me. And he's like, so do all who live to see such dark times. But that's
Yeah.
not for us to decide. All we can decide is what we can do with what we're given. And like he just learns just these like beautiful like little tidbits throughout this movie that let him
Yeah,
understand the burden that he's been given, and that he is the only one that can step up
right.
to
And
accept it.
it is his alone to bear.
Yeah.
Because especially that scary scene you were talking about with Galadriel, like, you know, he goes into that scene thinking, okay, I can trust this lady. She's super powerful, she's an elf, she's good. And he learns by the end of that scene, all of those are like, the more that power they have, the less I should trust them. The more they can help me, the less I should trust them. You know what
Like,
I
doesn't
mean?
matter if it's good or bad. Like, you should not like, and I love that even after she has like her big, huge, scary moment, she like calms down and she's like, oh, I passed.
Yeah, right, right. And
I
then
didn't take the ring. I'm good. I'm good.
right, and then right after they leave there, like you said, Boromir betrays him. So it's like even those closest to you, those in the fellowship, you cannot trust. You know what I mean? Like those closest to you are the ones who are the most dangerous, you know?
Yeah, no, it, just a beautiful character arc right there, and it's one
Yeah.
that has its cathartic release by the end of this movie, so it's a full movie's worth right there, but then also leaves its threads to be expanded upon in later movies. So like now
Yeah.
we've seen that he's accepted the responsibility. We'll now be able to go into the next one where we'll see him bear the burden of the responsibility. And then
Right.
the last one, see him like complete the arc of this responsibility. Like, that's beautiful
Absolutely.
there.
And without getting too far ahead of myself, we just talked a whole lot about trust. Who all of a sudden does he have to travel with for the entire next movie? You know what I mean?
Meagle.
Like, yeah. So I don't know. It's a really good. It's really, really, really good. I love it.
It's fantastic the way that they do it. And what I love the most about this one is it feels, it's such a grand adventure movie. Like they're rolling over it. Like that, I think this movie has one of my favorite shots that I've ever seen in a movie. And it's right after they all accept the responsibility to be the Fellowship of the Ring. And it cuts to this huge wide shot of this mountainscape, and they're walking across it. And you're getting the theme where they're like, da, 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 da.
Yep.
And then it cuts to the close up of them just crossing a rock, but they slow it down just enough so they all have like their character beats as they walk past the
Yeah.
camera. And
Yep.
it's the fucking coolest shot I've ever seen in a movie ever. It's so great. I like
I I think my favorite shot in this movie is when Arwen is riding on the horse with Frodo back to Rivendell, and
Yeah.
they go to like a couple of different angles of them in that just like wide open field, and she's riding and she's got like 6 or 7 of them behind her like in a line, like chasing right on her heels. It's
Yeah.
so good. It's so
Yeah.
good. Like, and you know which ones I'm talking about when they're doing like
Yeah.
the really like
Yeah, when
aerial
the
shots
yeah,
of
when
it.
the Nazgul are like chasing her, and you got like the crazy camera angle, like coming over the shoulder, like through the trees, and like
Yes, yeah.
they're like all like trying to like siphon in on her.
Yeah, and honestly, that whole sequence is shot really well. Like, and then it goes into like her, like the way they show the like her maneuvering in and out around them is so good. Like, there's all these like quick cuts of her making like turns. It's like it's awesome.
Oh, it's fantastic, and I think just the way this movie builds is so great. In its world building, you know, we talk so much about how much we love world building, and I love when you can integrate your world building as the movie goes on. So like a lot of the times you get ones where people try to do too much in the first act, and then you're kind of just like thrusted through the rest of it, but there's no continuous world building as you're going on. I think of
Right.
movies like Jupiter Ascending and shit like that.
I don't
Uh,
know if I've ever seen that one.
it's so
What
Chang,
about Mortal
Chang
Engines? Like Mortal
yeah, or
Engines?
Mortal Engines. Yeah. And what I love about this movie is
Also
just
Hugo Weaving, by the way.
yeah, another Hugo Weaving movie is just the way that they build throughout it. Because you know, like when we meet the Hobbits got to go, and it's time we got to go on the run now, and we got to get out of Hobbiton. We go to just this other town where like regular humans live, and we're getting into the world and seeing how hobbits are viewed as part of the rest of the world. And then from there, we're being introduced to elves, and we're learning like the next big portion of like this world. So like with each step that he has to take from Hobbiton, the world grows bigger and more expansive and larger than life. And it's such a great way of building that opposition from him to see like just how much the cards are stacked against him as he continues on this journey. Like I love Samwise Gamgee's line when they first leave Hobbiton and he like stops and Frodo's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "If I take one more step, it's the farthest away from home I've ever been."
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, getting back to that fantasy trope, right.
Yeah.
And like you're right, the way they expand it is great. They do it in increments. And the thing that I love about it the most, I never feel like there's any really like ham-fisted exposition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which a lot of times in movies that take place in the world that I live in, they have tons of ham-fisted exposition, and they're still pretty good movies, you know? Like you can forgive it to a certain extent. But like the way that they like mix it in, like when they tell you about the lady, the what is her name again? The Lady of the Wood, is that it? Like Galadriel, what do they call her?
Galadriel.
Like her title?
Yeah, I think she's like the Lady of the Forest or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. But the way they introduce that character to you, that you don't even notice really that they're just explaining to you like what she is. Like
Yeah.
they're like creeping through the forest, and Gimli's saying his dumb like comedic relief lines that are just every single one's landing. You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
so funny that they put him and Legolas in there, and they're just gonna be like bickering like sister wives. And they're
yeah,
just like ripping jokes the entire movie.
yeah. But no, in that scene though, he does a great job of like hooking me on on who Galadriel is and like how people are afraid of her and like the myth of it. And then in 1 second they're caught, you know, and it's like I'm in their world, but I'm in there with some context and like again, it's like so well blended into the tension of what was already going on. It's just really great, man. It's really great filmmaking.
It's fantastic, and I love that the second. I love too. I like it is split very well in its arcs from our halfway point because like normally you get in your like midpoint reversal kind of, you know, for us to get a little too technical is where there's like that switch and a lot of times it can be bad, but I think that this
Yeah,
movie is a really good example of doing a midpoint reversal where the switch is good, where it's like the highest that a character is going to be before he hits his fall from grace, because like our
yeah,
midpoint really here is like is Rivendell, is Frodo making the choice, the fellowship being formed, and then the second he's made that choice, the rest of this movie is just balls to the walls throwing insanity at him. Because like then from there they go through the snowstorm that Saruman throws at them. Then they have to go into the mines and they fight the troll and all the and freaking what the hell is the demon's name that fucking kills
I think
Gandalf?
it's the Balrog.
The Balrog, yeah, the
Yeah, the
Balrog. Like,
Balrog.
and they come across the Like, imagine like you're just like, yeah, I'll take this ring to Mordor, and within like 3 days, you're fighting a fire monster. Like, I'd be like, I'm not going anymore. Like,
Yeah, it's like
I'd be
we
like, did
didn't
you
even
see that
get
fucking
there
thing?
yet. This is
Like,
just like the road we're taking
yeah,
to get to
yeah,
somewhere. That's
yeah,
nuts.
yeah. I mean, like, you see that fucking thing? That thing's insane. And
Yeah.
then from there, and then you
By
fight
the
like
way,
orcs.
yeah, but I was gonna say, by the way, don't gloss over that Mines of Moria sequence. It's just amazing from start to finish. Like
It
when
is
they're out there and Frodo cracks the password, and then they get in and there's all like the dwarf skeletons on the ground. It's so good.
so good, and I love that it also sets up Gandalf's just absolute like frustration with Merry as a human being.
Yeah, yeah,
Like Merry knocks the skeleton into the well, and he's like, "No one heard anything," and then it crashes. He's like, "Fool of a took."
yeah. You
Like
fool
for
of
the rest of the movie, he's just like, "I can't fucking stand this guy."
Yeah, and I mean, and that sequence also contains like maybe one of the most iconic moments in movie history, right? When he's on the bridge slamming his staff into the ground going, "You shall not pass." It's so good.
Yeah, it's so goddamn good. Credit has to be given to every single actor in this movie because everyone is cast perfectly and everyone brings their A game. Like no one is wasted in this movie. Everyone is so goddamn good. It's
Yep.
unreal. And
Yeah.
I want to know whose idea was it to be like, all right, so we need a dwarf, right? We got this character Gimli. He's a dwarf. Who should we hire to play him? 6'5" John Rhys Davies. Like what?
Yeah, but
Like
it
what?
works, dude.
I know it worked. Like he's fantastic, but just like I would just be thinking about the logistics of having to film that, and I would be like, "Fuck that! No, absolutely not! Like,
Yeah.
please
No, but
find me someone of
dude,
the appropriate size."
that's why Peter Jackson is the man, though, because he's using the technology to its fullest extent. He's like, I don't need to get a guy who's tiny anymore. I can just get a guy who's perfect for the part and then figure all that other shit out later, you know?
Yeah, yeah, they're so great. Another thing that I love in this movie, and this is something I talk about with a lot of really great movies, or not
Yeah.
even like best movies of all times, but it's something that goes a long way for me with movies, and that's quotable dialogue, dialogue that you're gonna remember for a long time after you've seen this movie.
Yep.
And this movie is just chock full of them. Like you spoke about the "You shall not pass" line, iconic. You got the "One does not simply walk into
Yeah.
Mordor" has
Which
become
is like
a
turned
giant
into a huge
meme.
meme. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so many lines in this that are memes now. Like the one where they're like, "You have my bow and my axe," and then it cuts to like
Yeah.
some other guy saying something stupid. Like there's and talk about that for a minute. Like let's just pause and acknowledge for a second in this movie that when Legolas says to Frodo, "You have my bow," that is the only line of dialogue that Legolas ever speaks to Frodo in the entire series.
And the entire series, is that
Yeah,
real?
the entire well, they never see each other in Two
Oh,
Towers.
yeah, they don't cross paths for a
Yeah,
while.
and then when they do cross paths in Return of the King, like once the hobbits are back, they never interact.
Interesting.
So that's the only line of dialogue Legolas ever says to Frodo in the entire series.
Wow, he's really just carrying the B story with Gimli, huh?
Oh, well, I love at the end, like I love by the end of this movie how everything fractures and that we're gonna really expand the story and that everyone has to go their separate ways. Because now Frodo and Sam have to go on the journey themselves. Like the rest of the characters can't go with them. And I love that they make this declaration to each other that they're just like, as long as we stay true to each other, there's always hope. And we won't let Merry and Pippin be orc food. Like we're gonna go
Right.
hunt them down.
Right.
And you love seeing this trio fight. So you're immediately like, fuck
Yeah.
yeah, bro. Like go hunt those orcs. Like let's go, baby. Like
Yeah, which is another thing we kind of glossed over in the Mines of Moria thing. How many orcs and cave trolls do you think they fought? There was only 9 of them, dude.
yeah, dude, they fight so many in there. And I just love too. I love in movies where they also like they have those moments of disbelief where you just have to go with it because Legolas just never runs out of arrows.
Oh yeah, who cares though, dude? I don't
But that,
care.
yeah,
I'll
but that's what I'm
watch him
saying.
shoot arrows at orcs all day.
Yeah, because like you never want to see a scene where he's just like making arrows. So like he's just got a never-ending just quiver of arrows that he's just unleashing on orcs left and right.
Yeah,
It's right.
absolutely.
Is it in that one in the Mines of Moria where when he's fighting the troll and he just unloads like three of them into its neck, like when he like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
jumps
yeah,
on it?
yeah,
Yeah, dude, he's a fucking legend.
yeah. By the way, them splitting up, another fantasy trope that is just played perfectly in this movie.
Yeah, well,
Like,
I mean, there's a reason why they are the classics, man. When they work,
yeah,
they work to a T. And
yeah,
I
and
I
it's
I
the
that
perfect way
whole
to end the movie where Frodo learns not to trust any of the people that he's been traveling with. Like,
well, I love that too because it's a great inversion of everything. Because while Frodo learns that he can only trust in himself to bring this ring to Mordor, every other character has to learn to trust Frodo's decision.
yeah,
Because every single one of the rest of them makes that decision to not go after Frodo and trust that he's going to get there. Because Merry and Pippin, even when they're like, "Where's he going?" and Pippin's like, "He's not coming," and they create the distraction so that Frodo can get away. The three of
yep,
them, when they see them get across the river, go, "We're not going to follow them. Like Frodo's journey's his own now. We're going to trust that he's going to get there. We're going to go get Merry and Pippin, and we're going to go do our own thing." Like it's such a great inversion of that. It's picture perfect filmmaking.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that ending. The whole fight scene, everything about that ending fight scene is so good. Like I love when movies really get you like hyped up. And when I'm every time I watch this movie, no matter how many times I've seen it, when has this the Call of Gondor,
The
and like
last stand,
Legolas looks
yeah,
up and he's like, "That's the Call of Gondor," and they're like, and they just start bolting for him, and you have that insane tracking shot where we're going through the woods in the like aerial of the woods, and you see all the orcs just running after towards Boromir, and he's just like fighting them all off. I'm like, dude, I just start punching my couch. Like I'm just like, fucking go. I'm like, this movie's so good, man. Like I fucking love this
yeah.
movie.
It's
Like
a
it's
classic last stand,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's so good. And just like no one can die like Sean Bean, man. Like his speech at the end to him, like, I would have followed you to the end, my brother, my captain, my
Yeah, and then it
king.
goes all slow mo, and
Yeah.
he's
It's
when
like
he's
nerfed like six times with the arrows, like it's slow motion, like it's so good. Yeah,
yeah,
like
it's great. Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah, it's just it's picture perfect filmmaking, and I don't know that I could add anything better than that.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say as a like is New Zealand was like the perfect pick for this movie. It's
Oh
so
yeah,
beautiful. It's so
and
pretty.
it shows like there's no substitute for getting out on location and shooting backdrops, especially for fantasy stuff like this. Like a tangible location is so detrimental to making the CGI and fantastical elements of this work. Because you've seen it in the
Yeah.
later ones, in the Hobbits. Like, how much do the Hobbit movies? Well, I don't hate the Hobbit movies. I still enjoy those movies just because I enjoy the world. I still
Yeah.
recognize that it's it's such a step down from Lord of the Rings because it's all just computer generated.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
much of it doesn't feel lived in. Whereas
Yeah.
in
I
this,
mean,
everything like when you see that troll come in the mines, it feels lived in. When you see all of the like the squid monster come out of the water, like it feels lived in.
yeah. And I mean, the movie has like an incredible look. You're 100% right. The big like the actual like fields and trees and stuff like definitely play a big part in it. And it's I would say that choosing to film it on location in somewhere like New Zealand was probably a must, but just comparing it to like a movie that we did pretty recently, Planet of the Apes, which I called out in that episode how fake everything looked. Like, even
Uh,
though it was a lot of practical effects, like it all looked like a movie set, you know?
yeah.
Um, and like obviously filming in New Zealand, you don't get that same. It does not look like a movie set. You know what I mean? It looks like a really like far-reaching and beautiful landscape. You know?
They took the care and attention to detail to make sure that every shot pops and it pays off. It looks phenomenal. Now, I know I said in the beginning that, I was just going to be very masturbatory and didn't have anything to say dislike wise. Do you share those same sentiments or do you have anything that kind of turned you off in this movie?
Yeah, nah. I mean, I mean, it's long, but I think it needs to be long, and this might just be because I've watched the extended version more often than not recently. Um, it still somehow feels like a tight movie at 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like it
It
feels
does.
like it's exactly as long as it needs to be. So yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything that I didn't like about it. No.
There we go, and we'll leave it at that. All right, Jim, dive me in. Let me hear that cue. Who we deep diving?
All right. So we're gonna do Orlando Bloom this week,
Ooh.
and
I'm happy you're choosing that. I love Orlando Bloom. I think that man is a criminally underrated actor.
yeah, I
I
mean,
don't just say that because people get whenever I grow out my facial hair, people call me Will Turner all the time. So I don't just say that just because I bear a striking resemblance to the boyishly handsome Orlando Bloom.
I don't buy that one bit, by the way. I don't think you look anything like Will Turner.
No one asked you, Jim.
um, so I'm gonna really start with the Lord of the Rings, but I'm gonna throw out one credit before we get to that. He was in one episode of Midsummer Murders. Have you ever watched that
Ooh.
show?
No, I've never even heard of that.
It's like a British like murder she wrote like mystery kind of show
Oh
where he
my
solves a
God.
mystery
What
every
was he
week.
doing that in like film school before he landed this on? Like,
No, it's a BBC show, dude. It's like a big deal. There's like 20 seasons of that show.
oh my God. It's like their like General Hospital where it's just
Yeah,
like
maybe
a show that never ends.
it might not be 20, but it was on for a long time.
Yeah. Well, let's just,
It might
let's
even
just
still
talk
be
about
on.
that
I'm not
for a
sure.
second. How insane is it that this is this man's first, like right out of film school, this is your first movie?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things here I've never heard of in the early 90s, like mid 90s. He's in some movie called Wild, but I guess that's in 97, so he's probably a lot younger. But yeah, this is his first like big Hollywood movie, right? Like this is the first
This is
thing
like
I
his
ever saw him
coming
in.
out party. Yeah, they said, I remember reading somewhere that he said that like he got this like literally right as he got out of like a film school. Like that
Yeah, so let's just
he was on this set, which is
yeah.
insane to me. I couldn't imagine being that. Like, what a fucking break for him.
Yeah, well, he's got the look, and dude, he comes out hot, dude. So like, this is his first big movie, right? The same year Black Hawk Down comes out.
Like, like what a fucking year for that right there. And granted, like he doesn't
Yeah.
have a huge part in Black Hawk Down, but still, like you're being like your first two movies out the gate, you're directed by Peter Jackson and Ridley Scott.
Yep. And then so 2002, he's in the Two Towers, three
Yeah.
for three.
Yeah.
um, uh, have you seen Ned Kelly? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's like an Australian Western with Heath Ledger. I have seen it. It's not bad. It's not terrible. Ned
Okay,
Kelly
so
was like a famous, I think, like outlaw, like in the Australian outback.
sure. Um, in 2003, he comes out with Ned Kelly. And then also in 2003, he has two more movies, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. So,
That might be like one of the best years on paper for someone like ever. Like you're in two of the biggest franchises. Well, like Lord of the Rings, you knew was going to be huge, but like you didn't know really Pirates was going to be. But that movie ended up being insanely popular, and
yeah,
he
I
had
mean,
it's like I couldn't like that's so amazing. Like I couldn't he had to be the luckiest dude in the world sitting to himself. He's like, my first thing out of the gate, I'm in New Zealand making 3 Lord of the Rings movies. Oh, what do you want me to do after that? Oh, we're going to the Caribbean and we're gonna film Pirates of the Caribbean movies. It's like, you fuck yeah, bro. Like my life rocks.
yeah, but 4 out of his first 5 movies are the 3 Lord of the Rings movies. Wait, actually, hold on. One, two, three.
Right.
So 4 out of his first 6 movies, or sorry, 5 out of his first 6 movies are the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, Black Hawk Down, and the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And that all happens in like a 3 year span. That's insane.
That's
That's like
that's insane.
maybe the hottest start to a career of all time, right?
Yeah, dude, it's wild. Like that's so wild.
Yeah. And then I mean, there's still more to come. I don't know if he ever quite reaches that again, in my opinion.
Well, I mean,
But
that's a hard thing to reach for anyone to do once, like let alone like continuously.
yeah, and I think I have some theories on why he starts to slow down a little bit, right?
Well,
So
yeah, because he made fucking stonking amounts of money from that. So he would be like, I can do whatever the fuck I want now.
So okay, have you ever seen the Calcium Kid?
What? No, I've never even heard of that.
I don't know what it is. He's Jimmy the Calcium Kid Connolly in the Calcium Kid in 2004.
Never heard of that, but I'm gonna have to dive into that one.
It looks like a boxing movie.
Ooh.
It's like a Rocky. Following a bizarre series of events, Jimmy, a local amateur boxer, finds himself pitted in a match against the world champion.
Is Rocky.
Yeah, right. That's like basically the plot to Rocky. I think.
It's like word for word what Rocky is.
2004 though, he also is in the movie Troy.
Dude, like this guy's got the greatest career of all time, man.
Yeah.
Like, come
Which,
on.
I don't know if that's quite up there with any of the like the first bunch that we said, but that's pretty good.
I mean, there's an argument to be made. Obviously, I know Troy turns a lot of people off, but I
I
think
don't
that
think it makes a
movie's
lot of
phenomenal.
money either.
It didn't, yeah, it didn't make a lot of money either, but I think that movie's phenomenal.
Oh, I love that movie. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think this is kind of where you're gonna start to see like Troy. I don't think does well at the box office. It's like
No,
kind of
no,
seen as a failure. I think.
I think we were the only ones that went and saw that.
Yeah. In 2004, he's also in Haven, which is a movie I've never heard of.
I've never heard of that.
And then 2005, Kingdom of Heaven.
Dude, like this guy's got the greatest career. Like that
Yeah.
Kingdom of so the theatrical cut of Kingdom of Heaven sucks ass, but the director's cut is so goddamn good.
I don't know if I've seen the director's cut. I think I have, but I'm pretty sure I don't like either
Oh.
cut of this movie that much.
I think you have because I'm pretty sure you, me, and Ryan watched it together. When I first got it when it came out in physical media. I'm pretty sure you were there with us, but
I do
I
not
could be
remember that.
I could be wrong.
But I watched it on streaming like within the last like 3 years, but I don't remember if it was the director's cut or the theatrical cut that I watched. But also not a movie that does well at the box office, if I remember.
Also doesn't do well at the box office. Yeah, no, that
Right.
movie.
So he's got like two kind of like period piece expensive flops, like back
Yeah.
to back. Elizabethtown, I think we can skip. Then he's in Dead Man's Chest, which
Yeah, and he
probably
comes
my
back,
favorite-
baby. He's like,
spoiler, probably my favorite Pirates movie.
yeah, that is the definitive Pirates movie.
And then yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna like, I'm not gonna get into every credit here, just in the interest of time, but I'm trying to see like other stuff that might be kind of on this same level. He does the Three Musketeers in 2011. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Don't know if we'd put that one on the same level.
I mean, yeah, and I mean, there's a couple more Pirates movies here. At World's End.
Yeah.
He's in some of the Hobbit movies. He's in that god awful fourth Pirates movie, Dead Men Tell No Tales.
The fifth one, actually.
Oh, the fifth one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fifth one.
But yeah, that one is tough.
Yeah, and then I mean, all right. I see. Like this isn't. It's hard to say Lord of the Rings because I feel like I'm gonna take the Fellowship over every movie here.
Well, that's
But,
why you're more just going into a really great career that a dude has had more than playing this or that, because Fellowship is going to beat the majority of his movies.
Yeah. So last one I'll call out here is one from last year that you actually recommended I watch. In
Yeah.
our yearly review episode, and I did watch Gran Turismo.
Dude, great movie.
Which
Great.
maybe the most effective commercial for the game Gran Turismo of all time, because I paused that movie with 11 minutes left and went and bought Gran Turismo 5. I was so sold on that game. Like after watching that movie, I was like, and I don't think I'm gonna be a race car driver. Don't get me wrong. I just the whole like loudness of the cars and everything. I was so into it. I'm like, I want to play this game now.
It was a great movie. And Orlando Bloom, and I like that Orlando Bloom is just settling in and just doing like character actor roles kind of right now.
Yeah.
Like it's always great when he turns up and stuff now, because I think he is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good
he's-
movie for him to be in.
Yeah, and that was like the perfect character for him to play in that. Have you, since we're in Lord of the Rings territory here, have you given the Rings of Power show a shot at all?
I have, yeah. I kind of
You
like it.
have?
I like the first season.
Did you? I did not watch it. Not for any reason that like YouTubers would want you to believe that it's like the fucking worst.
Yeah,
The
those fucking movies.
every clickbait tag you see, the Rings of Power, go woke, go broke nonsense. I just never, you know me, I never really watched TV shows. So it's kind of fallen to the wayside and I just haven't gotten to it. But if you've given if you say it's solid, then I know that it's worth watching.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought the lady who played Galadriel in it was really good. I don't know her name off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I thought the guy who played I don't know. Can you spoil a show that's been out for that long? I don't know.
I mean, you can spoil it for me. I don't care.
The guy who played Saruman, like Saruman's in it, but you don't really know it's him at the beginning. Like he was
Yeah.
awesome. The girl who played the Hobbit in it, I thought was really good. I like that show. It was good.
So yeah, so I'll get around to it eventually. I'm just you know me with
I
TV
mean,
shows.
it wasn't like Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings quality, but
Yeah.
like I think we made it pretty clear we don't think like there's anything that like maybe there's like 10 movies that are that quality, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like he hit lightning in a bottle and you could remake the Lord of the Rings movie shot for shot with somebody else and it won't come anywhere near to that.
Yeah. But I guess the only other thing I want to ask you about, what do you think about the theatrical versus the extended cut? Which one do you take for this movie?
So I would have to watch the extended one again
I
because it's
recommend you do.
been a minute since I have. And the last few times I've watched this, it's been theatrical because I showed it to Heather a couple of months ago. Because one day out of the blue, she was like, you know what I want to watch? Like Lord of the Rings. And I think I came like instantly. Like I had to change my underwear. I pre-came so badly. Uh, but so I wasn't gonna be like, all right, I'll show you the Lord of the Rings, but you have to watch the extended. Like that's like it was like I had to start
Yeah,
it with
that's
theatrical.
tough. It's almost 4 hours. The
Yeah,
extended
yeah.
Fellowship of the
Like
Ring.
I see it so many times with people on the internet where they're like, I am introducing it to my girlfriend. I'm going right to the extended. And it's like that's a bad move, dude. Like start theatrical and work your way in. So I showed
Yeah,
her the theatrical, and then when we were had to watch it for this, I actually watched it on the plane while I was on my way to my conference last week. So on the plane they only had the theatrical. So the last few times it's been the theatrical, so I don't remember what was in the extended. I gut reaction though, I obviously want to say the extended because I love this world so much that I'm in the same boat as you, where even though it's a long movie, it doesn't feel long enough. Like you want to live in it longer. When you get to the end of this 3 hour movie, you still
yeah,
don't want it to end. So gut reaction, I'm still gonna say I'd rather the extended, of course, just because it's more time in this world that I love.
cool. Okay,
What about
yeah.
you? I'm guessing obviously
Um,
you're the same way. You'd want the extended.
I don't know. I kind of want to watch them both back to back before I say anything. But
Yeah.
like
It's like
I
a
I
6 hour
think
journey.
I think before watching a lot of the theatrical cut this time, like before watching the theatrical cut this time, I would have said the extended like no question.
Yeah.
But I think I watched the extended one pretty recently, and I think the editing in the theatrical one in the first like hour or so, like 45 minutes before they leave Hobbiton, like that first 45 minutes, the editing is so much cleaner. And like
Yeah.
the way that they cut between like the Nazgul and Gandalf and the Shire, I think works a lot better in terms of like telling the story. Like it's tighter and it still gets across all the information it needs to get across. Like so
I mean, there's a
I think if
reason
it's
why
awesome.
they cut those. I mean, like when you look at it, there's a reason why it was cut. Like it
Yeah,
flows
and
better.
I think that's probably also the reason to introduce people on the theatrical one because
Theatrical.
it's like it's more of like a movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
extended
like
one, talk
like I
about
would say,
masturbatory. The
yeah, yeah.
extended version is
Version is the
masturbatory.
masturbatory. Yeah. Like I think I'm with you that I could go either like the fan in me who just wants to live in the world like can fuck on the extended anytime. But the not I don't want to say critical person, but just watching it like as a movie to see like the perfect version of Peter Jackson's vision, I think the theatrical is the way to go because that's the way like he just cut it perfectly for
Yeah.
the screen.
The
So
theatrical version has little to no fat,
yeah,
which
exactly.
is always an impressive thing. I think it's
Yeah.
more impressive. I can't say the same thing about the
The
extended version, and I
yeah,
still love it. I probably love it more even, but there's a
yeah.
lot of fat on that.
I get yeah, no, I get it. I get what you're saying. I think I'm the exact same way. So yeah, I
All right, so
take
do we
take
want to
them
get
both.
to our ratings here?
Yeah, well, yeah. Although I think anyone who's made it this far it will come as no surprise to what the ratings are going to be. But
Yeah, it's gonna be a quick one.
cue my boy up, Ebert. Let's dive in.
I'm Roger Ebert. In a scene from the best film of the decade. This is a great film.
Raj, my boy, you're goddamn right. This was a great film. The only question I think left to ask here, Jim, is this movie going to join the ranks of Titanic and become our second perfect movie? So
I
why
don't
don't
think
you
so.
kick
I'm
it
gonna
off
give it
for
five
us?
stars.
What is your final rating for the Lord of the
Five
Rings?
stars.
Five
Five stars.
stars?
Easy. Nothing
Five,
else left to say. Five
easy,
stars.
easy 5 stars. Drum roll. I'll really make you wait. Just kidding. 5 stars for me also. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
There's
of
yeah,
course.
after everything we've said throughout this, anything less than 5 stars would have been absolute sacrilege. And this is why I think it worked so well when we were talking in that one episode about like A Knight's Tale, where it was like we couldn't give it the 5 stars because like it had like because you started naming like
Yeah.
the movies that give you the 5 star feelings and like it's when you get to a movie like this is 5 star, no question.
Yeah, and I mean like the big like Knight's Tale kind of has this too, but not as much as this movie does. It's like the kind of movie that I've seen 50 times and I could watch it 50 more. You know what I mean? Like
Same,
I would never get tired of watching it.
my flight was 5 days apart. I watched The Fellowship on the way to Phoenix. I watched The Fellowship on the way home from Phoenix. Like it's
Right,
and I
right.
and I yeah, and I love them both times as if I was watching it for the first time. Like, and that's a 5 star movie right there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
If I wouldn't give this movie 5 stars, I wouldn't give anything 5 stars. So what would
exactly.
even be the point of having that many?
Exactly. So now, Jim, the true question,
Oh fuck.
the true question.
Oh no.
We've
Dude, can I
we've been on point every time we've had to do this so far, and I don't know if we're gonna align this time.
can I
But
can I
which do we?
suggest something
What?
on the verge of you making me decide between Titanic and Lord of the Rings?
Okay.
I think when we get to we should do
Hold
the
on.
thing I was saying with before, but
Okay.
only with 10-star movies. So like
Hold it.
when we get up to like 5, we just do like a whole episode that's us like choosing between the 5 and like ranking them in an order.
Of the perfect 10 movies.
Yeah, just the perfect 10s.
Are you saying that so that you don't have to be pushed to pick right now?
I mean, that is definitely part of it. But also, I think that would be a fun episode. Imagine if we got to like prepare and talk about all of them at once.
Would. And that's where you could fight for your decisions, but you still have to make one right now.
Oh, crushing.
So, Jim,
Oh, man.
which do you
Fuck.
take? Titanic or Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring?
It's too hard, dude. I don't know. How do you. I refuse.
Do you want me to go first?
No, I'm just not gonna go.
He's abstaining.
Yeah, I refuse. I find the question objectionable. It's offensive that you would even ask.
Well, you'll have to do it eventually,
No,
Jimbo,
I
my
know.
friend.
I'll pick. I am gonna take Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
I guess we're gonna have to fight it out because I'm gonna pick Titanic.
That's. I mean, I can't argue with you, man. What do you want me to do? Like,
I
I would
know it
need
is
to
a
really
tough one.
think this through if you were gonna make me like do a gauntlet.
I know to pick a gauntlet, it is tough. Well, so then, because my question to this is then, would you put all the Lord of the Rings movies over Titanic?
I don't know. I don't think so. But
But
I
this
will
one
say, The Fellowship is probably my favorite Lord of the Rings movie.
is
Like,
your favorite
yeah,
Lord of
I
the
would say, and like it's probably close between that and Two Towers, but I think I like those two movies both a
Okay.
lot more than Return of the King.
Right. So then so the question for really then is this: is the story of Frodo learning to bear responsibility better than the story of Rose learning the true value of meaning in life, that money isn't everything, that life experience is more important than status?
I mean, they're both like classic coming of age kind of stories done in like absolutely perfect ways, and I don't really understand how I'm supposed to pick between them.
You heard it here, people. Rose is Frodo.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, more or less, yeah. If you zoom out far enough.
All right, I guess we'll just have them sharing first place right now because I really don't know how we can concisively pivot each other to the other.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's such a hard question,
I
and I
know it's
hadn't
tough
even.
because I would because to me Titanic is in my top 10 of all time. And all the Lord of the Rings movies are in my top like 50, but only one of them's in my top 10 and it's not Fellowship.
Interesting. I think
So
Fellowship
like
would be in my top 10.
it would.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I get it is tough with these perfect ones.
But Titanic would be too. And like, don't ask me where they would be in the top 10. This is spiraling out of control.
no, no, you were right. The rankings of the perfect 10 ones are way harder to do than any
Yeah,
other
we
one.
should like dedicate some time to it because like I probably should have thought that this was gonna happen ahead of time, but I didn't. Like it didn't dawn on me that you were gonna ask me that question until you were right about to ask it. And then I was like, oh
It
no.
was like, oh no, what have we done? Okay, so for right now, they share the top spot, and I think
Yeah,
that's
we're split. I
yeah,
pick Lord of the Rings, you pick Titanic. We'll settle it another day, you know?
yeah. We'll settle it that they sit at 1 and 1A.
Yeah.
They just share right there. I can live with that for now because it is that is a tough one. We would need to dedicate a lot more time to really dive into the aspects of both Lord of the Rings and Titanic to really decide a winner. But let us know to all you listeners out there if you've made it this far. Let us drop down the comments below. Which would you vote for between Titanic and The Fellowship? And let's hear your reasoning why. Maybe you've got a good enough reasoning to sway either one of us in that direction. Jim, do you want to take a guess at next week's episode? My hint is it's going to be nowhere near as good as today's.
That's a very interesting hint.
You're gonna,
I mean, we
you're,
probably
we're,
saw it on the box office, right?
oh yeah, so then there's that your hint. It was in the box office for the opening weekend of Lord of the Rings.
Okay, can I go back and look at the opening weekend? Is
No,
that
you
cheating?
no, you cannot.
Then I'm never gonna get it. Wait, is it how high? My guess is how high.
No, it isn't. Unfortunately, I did not get to see
Unfortunately,
how
indeed.
high. Yeah. Fortunately, I did not see how high.
All right,
Yeah.
that was my guess. What is it? I don't know.
You want another hint?
All right, if you want to give me another hint, yeah.
Okay. It's an animated movie.
Oh, we talked about Jimmy Neutron before, right?
Yep. We are
Oh,
we're
jeez.
we are taking a hard turn from the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, and we are going into. It's been a while since we've done a Nickelodeon movie.
Yeah,
The
all the
Rugrats
way
movie
back
was
to Rugrats.
getting a little sad there all by itself. So now we're gonna dive into Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius.
Can't
Uh,
wait.
yeah, it's gonna be something. I don't think I haven't watched this movie since that saw it in theaters probably.
I'm gonna call in my veto.
Oh,
Do I have a veto?
no, there's no vetoes. You must show up. Jim, just go in hoping that you get surprised with a Doctor Dolittle 2 and less a Rugrats movie.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I did like the show Jimmy Neutron, so
So who knows?
when
It
I
might
was a
surprise
child.
us. It could surprise us and maybe hold up a little bit better than we thought possible. But we'll see. Do you have anything you want to leave the people with this week? Any recommendations? Anything you'll watch that you think the people might be interested in?
I'm gonna stick with like a recommendation amongst the stuff that I've been watching, and I'm
Okay.
probably a little behind on this, but the show Winning Time on HBO I've been watching.
Who's in that? What's that?
It's about like the Lakers, like the Los Angeles
Uh,
Lakers when they become the Showtime Lakers with and John
yeah,
C. Riley plays Jerry Buss.
I remember seeing trailer for that.
Yeah.
It's been a few seasons of it already, right? Though it's not
Yeah,
like
I just
new.
started watching the first season this week, but I think there's 2 seasons that are out. Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure it's gonna get canceled. So
So there you go. You only have to watch a few.
yeah. It's a low commitment, and
Perfect.
honestly, like it's just kind of okay. But like it is fun. So
Nice. I like that you're giving in the little like what you've been watching. I join in on this fun? Can I say what I've
yeah,
been watching?
go for it. Because I
So it's
finally came up with an idea to say at the end of the show, and now you just want to do it too. Okay.
your idea is so good. I just
It
need to
took me
I need to
it took me
piggyback
like
off of.
4 months to come up with the idea to do that.
I'm
No, go ahead,
immediately
man.
gonna jump in and join in on the fun. So funny enough that we talk so much about how I don't watch television shows. And when I finally do watch one, it's one that's not new. So what I'm watching right now is 24.
Oh wow. Are you starting on the first season?
So I actually just finished the first season before the day before I left for my conference.
Did you
I
watch
finished.
that show when it was on?
No, I've never seen it before. I've never,
Oh,
yeah.
wait,
And
is the end of the first season what happens? I don't want to ruin anything.
so the end of the first season is when he finds out that Nina, his like trusted agent that he was like banging when he was separated from his wife, is actually a double agent, and she
Yeah.
straight up murders Jack Bauer's wife.
Oh, dude, the
And that's how,
CTU, right?
yeah,
The
and that's how
counterterrorism
yeah,
unit.
yeah, and that's how the season ends. Well, spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't watched 24, but sorry.
The show's like
Uh,
25 years old. They can
yeah,
they'll be fine.
yeah. If you haven't seen it yet, like me, sorry. And so I actually just started the second season. I watched the first episode before we just started doing this episode now. So as soon as we're done recording, I'm gonna go back and watch more because this show is fucking bananas.
Yeah, the first like 2 seasons I remember being insanely good. I remember being
Yeah.
really into it when I watched
It's
them. But I watched them like as they aired on Fox, like when they
yeah,
like back in what was it, like 2002,
yeah,
2003?
yeah. It started like right around 02, 03, which is insane that like it started right around like I know you hate it whenever I bring up 9/11, but it is insane to think that they made this show right after that and people were like, fuck yeah. Like,
Yeah, people certainly had a certain kind of attitude in
yeah.
2002, that's for sure.
Yes, they did. Like watching this show now, I'm like, dude, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
this show is
it's
insane.
nuts. It is
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah, it's
But back in
nuts.
2002, people were like, the world needs more Jack Bowers.
Dude, it's wild, and I'm fucking loving it, dude. So I'm hooked on that, and that's what I'm watching right now. Make sure to join us here next week when we dive into Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, that classic animated Nickelodeon movie. And as always, until next time, we'll see you at the movies.